And you've just heard Communication of Love by CLR Theory. And I'm delighted to be joined now by Hannah and Jill, who are CLR Theory. Hello, both.
Hello. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I'll ask you first, Hannah, how did CLR Theory come about?
Well, Jill and I's friendship began quite a few years ago now. Was it 2016?
Yeah, that's right.
2016, I had just released an album, an EP, a solo EP, and I was looking for people to sort of play with and gig with, and I met Jill at a mutual friend's party, and I was instantly like, you're the gal. And we just got on really well and vibed, and then I found out that Jill was, you know, working with lots of different musos and that played piano and stuff like that. So we hit it off. We've been like best pals ever since. But the actual CLR Theory sort of project has actually only been running for a couple of years. And we basically, as friends during lockdown, decided to make an album, and then we started, you know, things started rolling. We realized actually we've got enough songs for an album, so we'll get a wee band name together and have it as a sort of collective for the future if anyone wants to join. And it's grown and grown and grown. So yeah, CLR Theory came about essentially 2 years ago.
Yeah,
officially, but our friendship's been going for a solid few years now.
Yeah. And it kind of started, we were both key workers during the pandemic. So Hannah was in a show called Pride and Prejudice, sort of, that was on tour. And they've won an Olivier Award now, which I tell everybody who will listen because they're really proud of them.
You're very sweet.
And they were on tour and they were in Southampton doing their 100th show of the play when lockdown was announced.
Oh, wow.
At that point, we didn't know if the border was going to shut, so they all boosted home. And I was working in the NHS at the time. So Hannah became a greengrocer, and over 18 months worked in zucchinis and Pollock Shields, on and off, feeding the community. And I was working in the hospital. So it was a really dark time. And I think to keep ourselves going, we sent each other little voice notes to keep our spirits up. But the voice notes kind of turned into little tunes. And then we kind of started using GarageBand on our laptops. And then it kind of built from there, where eventually we just started layering things up, sending files to one another, just as little presents to one another to keep each other going. And then the album kind of grew really naturally.
Quite organically, yeah. Like, we always knew we wanted to make music together, but we didn't have a sort of set goal set out. But then as we sort of went through this time where we were both doing these intense jobs, we sort of thought, actually, we do have like a voice and a sort of common theme across the voice notes that we were sending. And that's when we started to stitch something together. But neither of us thought that we would be sat here doing interviews and having our music played on BBC Introducing and all that.
And talking to you today. So yeah, we're just thrilled. And I think, it was at a time where we didn't know if gigs would ever happen again. So the music was just initially for ourselves. I think we were both the same.
Yeah.
I'd get home from like a 12-hour shift, and we'd taken apple boxes from zucchinis and soundproofed cupboards, and would use like pillows and quilts, and
that cupboard
there is where half of the record was made, if not more, actually. We did a lot of work in this room.
Most of the record
was probably made in this room, actually. So, and Hannah had a tiny attic space in her flat that she would crawl into.
You can't stand up in it. You have to sit cross-legged. So I could only do 2 hours max before my legs felt like you were going to fall off.
So we'd come home after like a 12-hour shift and just sing our hearts out. And it was just, it was just really soothing for us. And so it was kind of for ourselves, for each other.
Yeah.
And then now we're just absolutely thrilled that we get to share it with people, and we hope it kind of gives them comfort as well, because we've all been through this, and it's such a universal experience. We've all lost something or someone, I think a little piece of ourselves, and we kind of, it's just amazing to be back as a community and you know, kind of rebuilding things. So,
and you mentioned that there's a kind of theme. Is the theme related to experiences of lockdown and COVID and all of that?
It's more of a sort of, I mean, there are links, but it's not a sad album in any way, but it's certainly reflective and quite nostalgic. Like, I wrote a love song, but yeah, it's a lockdown love song, so the lyrics are slightly different to maybe love that you would have in the middle of the summer, you know, with all those sort of like old tropes, you know, that you hear. It's more like the realness of love within my experience that I had with my partner. So it's like, yeah, I guess it is related, but it's not, you know, we'd really try to reflect our experiences, but also have a lot of hope as well. So there's some upbeat songs, and but there is a few that are specifically related to Jill's experience with working in the ICU. But yeah,
I think there's a definite arc, because we wrote it at the time. It was what we were feeling at the time.
Yeah.
So at the start, it's more, I guess, kind of like the grief cycle kind of thing, where it's hopeful at the end. At the beginning, we were in the thick of it. There's one song, I'm Too Tired, that I wrote after a series of night shifts. I think I'd just come off of a 90-hour week, and I was absolutely exhausted, and it was peak lockdown.
Right.
So for that one, we felt like the Bird song was kind of the soundtrack to our pandemic at that time. And Hannah and I would like send each other little videos of nature if we'd been out on our walks, and you know, there was a river or the leaves or a nice sky or something. We would send each other those along with our voice notes and our WhatsApp messages. And so I had wanted to capture the bird song. It was so still and so quiet, and it was something that was really beautiful. So at that point, we hadn't decided officially we were going to make it an album or make it a record. So we hadn't got any kit at that point. So I just had GarageBand on my laptop. I sang directly into the laptop, and we used that vocal on the record because it was just so raw, and it was so reflective of what you know, what we were feeling at the time. And I leaned out my window to record the bird song because I'd already had my half an hour walk by that point, and I wasn't allowed outside again. So I think then towards the end, it's like looking towards like what will the new normal be, and looking forward to, and that kind of yearning for connection again, and the fact that there was hope that we would all be together. And
there's a lyric in Breathe, Brain Bath, which is one of our songs at the end of the album, and one of the lyrics is, I have a friend now, she's holding me. So it's like, there's a lot of hope towards the end, and actually there's connection throughout the whole of the album between us two, and you can sort of see it grow as the album goes on, which is really nice. And
to kind of reflect that, Brain Bath, that's a really good point actually, has that arc in itself. So we used the voice notes that we used to keep in touch with one another throughout that kind of 2-year period. So you can hear it at the start, you know, we're checking in on each other and making sure we're all right, and then towards the end we're talking about, you know, amazing female musicians that we've just seen, and you know, gigs we've been to, and exciting things happening in our lives. So even within that song, I think it kind of ties the whole record together, because you can really see the journey. So
you had
actually write it in the bath. No, Jill did actually write that song in the bath, so it does what it says in the tin.
I have visions of a very dangerous laptop in the bath.
It was all in her head. She's like Mozart.
So when did you decide that these voice notes and the things that you've been saying to each other, you were going to add music to them? Because was it one person's idea to go, these are these are the basics of songs as well.
That was our idea. So the brain bath, I had just been, I had a long bath, and then I just had a play on the piano. I just had a lot on my mind.
Yeah.
And that really helped to kind of process everything. Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember. Did I say something about it?
I'd sent it to my partner, Colin, and he'd said, "What's that? It's amazing." And I was like, "Oh, it was just like an improv I did this morning." And he was like, "No way. You have to send that to Hannah." So I sent it to Hannah, and I was like, "Oh, I just did this thing. Hopefully it'll be soothing for you on a Sunday morning. It's a brain bath." And then Hannah had said, "Oh, this would sound amazing with like some spoken word on it." And both of us had been involved in getting PPE for the front line at the start of the pandemic. So Hannah had helped me set up a charity, and we'd done a lot of campaigning to get proper PPE for healthcare workers and social care workers. And I had spoken on BBC Debate Night about that. And Hannah had said, "You should put your debate night speech on it.
Yeah.
It would sound amazing." And I was like, "That's quite intense."
Yeah.
So I put it backwards. And I put that in. And then Hannah and I had sent such long voice notes to each other that Hannah had one that was about 10 or 15 minutes long. So I put that backwards as well to match. But then I was just, going through all the voice notes, and there was just some many
nice stuff,
really beautiful memories.
We listened to it back the other day while we were trying to rehearse how to gig this bizarre song that we've written, and we realised that it's almost like a little, Blue Peter. Remember the time capsules?
Yes,
it's like that. It's like a little vocal time capsule of our friendship and our experience over the pandemic. And every time I listen to it, I get really emotional, because it's like we are trying to move on. Things aren't great in Britain right now. It's pretty awful, but we're trying to move on, and there is a bit more connectivity again.
Yeah.
And when you listen back to how you were, it's hard to remember. You look back with rose-tinted glasses, but if you've actually got the vocal evidence of how you were feeling day by day, it's quite moving sometimes when you hear it back. And obviously we've selected specific ones that are quite positive and hopeful.
And people have said that they find it quite relatable. I think key workers in particular for I'm Too Tired have said that they really identify with it because they know exactly how it feels. And I know someone else who's a frontline NHS worker, and she says it's now a bedtime song for her.
That's cute.
I'm so touched by. So they've got dance moves apparently as well. Should I have even told you that yet? She was telling me like the other night, which is so sweet. And Hannah's partner is a teacher, so she really identified with it as well. I think because we've all been through it together, then everybody knows what it feels like. So these songs are kind of what everybody's been through. But they are optimistic towards the end. It's not all doom and gloomy, promise.
Pretty promise.
And you're going to be launching the album at the Glad Cafe on the 20th of January. How's the live? What should people expect from CLR Theory when they play live?
Loads of harmonies, lots of evidence of hard work. No, we've spent hours looking at how to, because Jill sort of, a lot of Jill's songs are like 5-part harmony. I think my one recently is about 4. Most of them are, there's at least 3 harmonies within it, but I'd say mainly 5 on most. And there's always wee cheeky bits here and there. And we're like, oh, how are we gonna get that in? So we've brought this our friend, well, your friend. He's now my friend Nico Denman. Is that how you say her second name? Yeah, Denman. And she is amazing, and she's brought in a really strong third harmony voice that we've been working on to get the core of the sort of 3-part harmony there for the gigs. And then we're adding on all the extra stuff. So Jill and I have brought in different people we know who are musicians who can add instrumentation and also some extra harmonies if we need. Because it is quite complex, especially your songs. I'm like, whoa. How are we going to achieve this?
So
It's a bit of a challenge, but we're getting there.
poor Nico, we were like, oh, can you come and do vocals for us? And at one point she's singing, playing a tambourine and a drum.
Yeah.
She was like, might as well be like a one-woman band.
I know.
But yeah, Nico and I were in a band called Blockestra together.
Right.
So it was based at Bar Block on Bath Street, and I think I joined that in like 2009. And the idea was it was like an orchestra of the people, and there were some professional musicians. Louis Abbott from Admiral Fallow, he ran it.
Oh, nice.
And then there was about 30 people at one point, and there'd be people who were professional musicians and would like write original songs for the group, but there would also be like people who could only play a G, and they would work on their ukulele until the G. So Nico and I were in that, and then Pedro Cameron from Man of the Minch, he plays fiddle, and he's in the full band for the launch.
Right.
And I'm really excited. So Pedro and I were both. We grew up, I was in Forfar and he was in Dundee. So we met through like friends of friends. And actually he came to join my emo band. So,
the music's still online, guys.
Oh, excellent. Check that out.
So I think that was when I was about 15. And Pedro was brought along to a gig that we were playing at our local youth club, because our guitarist had met him at a party and they'd been jamming the night before, but he just came along to sound check, and Mitch was like, oh, this is Pedro, he's gonna play with us tonight. And we were all a bit like, okay. We haven't had a practice. And then in sound check he just improvised and was absolutely incredible. So he was in our band since then, and then when he had moved to Glasgow, I invited him along to Blockestra. Right. And then we'd played session musician together in Broken Chanter. David needed a fiddle player, and I was like, oh, my best pal Pedro is incredible. And then I sang on Man of the Minch record, so it was just an absolute joy to have him come and play on ours. Yeah. And then we've got Ruth Campbell. We were in Skinny Dipper together. Ruth, an incredible cellist, and she used to be in a band called Ariel's Up. She helped me with the string arrangements, because I'm a beginner on the fiddle. So on the record, there's fiddle and cello. All the fiddle is me kind of scratching scratching like a wailing cat. And then on Mist, it's Ruth, and she loves a good harmony as well. So in the cupboard, she kind of built up an 8-part cello part, which is incredible.
Which is wonderful. But then when you go to
play it live, then it becomes a bit confusing. So then Ali plays the trumpet, and Hannah plays the trumpet. So when Hannah is singing and can't play the trumpet, Ali does, and then when Hannah's not singing in the tunes, they play in harmony. So Ali and I were in Skinny Dipper together as well, and Ali plays session for loads of different bands, like some ska bands, and she's in Randolph Sleep. And then your best pal Tina.
I was doing the show that I was doing when the lockdown hit, Pride and Prejudice. My friend Tina was in it, and so she plays the clarinet and the cello, and she sings and plays piano. She does everything really. So we wanted her involved as well as an extra cellist, and she plays the clarinet on Communication of Love, which she's played. So
it's got a gorgeous voice.
It's just nice to have friends, working with you and making your music better as well, like making your music more full of magic.
We just like brought loved ones in. When lockdown opened enough that we were allowed people in our houses finally, then we got Ruth in and Pedro and Pina into recording here. So it's just been a project of love and a lot of self-discovery, and we learned so much. So we did all of the recording ourselves, almost all of it.
Jill learned to mix.
Your pal Steve did Baran remotely, and then sent us the files, and we mixed that in.
My pal Steve McCourt, he's an actor and he's in the West End at the moment. And I was like, have you got any time to put down some Baran? And he was like, yeah, give me like 2 days. He was like in the middle of a tech rehearsal and he was like, yeah, cool. And then he just like, I think he went home and did it in his cupboard as well and sent it over within a couple of days. And I was just like, you're a legend. So sadly he won't be, I don't think he'll be at the gig because he's busy, but it just, you know, it's just been such a connection. It's kind of,
And then the photography, my best pal Oshin lives just across the road, and he'd kind of taken up photography. Are you waving at us?
Yeah. You know what government feels like.
We would wave to each other from our windows and flash our lights on and off to say hi.
Yeah.
But Osh took pictures in Queen's Park. After work, some days we would meet for a juice and a walk. So we kind of recreated that vibe, and that kind of feeling over the last couple of years where everything is kind of, you know, everything's normal, but nothing's normal. So he'd use a kind of pink, purple film, and we just goofed about. Our main press picture, we were hiding in the bushes as a joke. And we looked really serious, and then he took a picture and actually we loved it. We thought,
that's now the iconic one that we use.
That's the one we use. So, and he took some snaps outside Inex. They were the first place that gave us PPE donations. So that's like a hardware shop that's on our street. And they gave us 100 pairs of goggles for our nurses that I took to my night shift. They were incredible. So so that was kind of reflected in the press photos. And then Hannah's pal Seb, do you want to tell him about Seb?
Yeah, Seb, Sebastian, he is an illustrator in Paris. My brother lives in Paris, so he's a friend of my brother's, and every time I go over to see my brother, I'll see him, and he has always said, he's got a real fondness for Scotland. So he comes over quite a lot, and we always said one day we would sort of do something together. And then when we had the opportunity to make some artwork for the album and make it into a thing, he was like, yeah, I'm up for it. So he's drawn these beautiful illustrations that we've used for each of our singles so far. And it's also the album cover, which we'll release soon because I don't think it's out there yet. Probably do that this week or whatever.
And he'd sent us pencil drawings initially, and with the ideas of making them into oil paintings, but with the DIY vibe of the record, the pencil drawings were just stunning and perfect. So
sketchy.
I guess it was like a way of us finding community at a time when it was really difficult to find that. And you know, we get such a sense of like identity from music. So it's kind of like finding ourselves in that again. And we got so much help from different people. Carla J. Easton was absolutely amazing, giving advice, because I was just like, how do you put out a record? Like, how do you do a pack? I've got no idea. So she was so helpful and supportive. And Kieran Heather, I'd played session with Kieran in A. Wesley Chung's band, and Kieran had done an absolutely incredible job of producing Wesley's album Portents. And so he'd mixed 2 of the songs on this record and played some synth on it, and he helped me learn to mix. So he would, whilst we were mixing, he would explain exactly what he was doing, and then he would kind of mentor me. So I would send him tracks and he would give me notes, and then lots of your theatre pals as well. So MJ and then people had given us advice about what mics to buy, and we had a little Zoom tutorial from one of the sound engineers that Hannah had been on tour with about how to record, which was super useful.
It's that thing, Ali, of like, you know, a lot of the time women can be quite it's imposter syndrome. It's also just like fear of, if you don't see it, it's hard to believe that you can do it too. And I think in terms of sound and engineering, like, you know, in my industry, it's more male dominated than it is women. So we were keen to try ourselves. And Jill has this amazing creative brain and also this incredibly logical brain as well with her work through surgery. And so I knew that you'd be able to do it. And she self-taught and did a few courses, and she's like mixed, you know, how many songs did you mix? 4 of the songs on the album are mixed by Jill, and the rest are done obviously professionally from our friends Callum Patterson and Kieran Heather. And it's like, I'm just really proud of you for doing it, because I think it's great to challenge yourself and learn new stuff. And if you don't get the opportunity to do it, then yeah, teach yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so wonderful that this kind of very intimate, private beginning of these voice notes and everything has grown, as you've just explained, into not just doing it together, but including so many other people as well. And I think it's a great example of hope and positivity moving forward. You know, like we didn't know, if you go back to that the lockdown, deepest, darkest lockdown, we weren't sure what was going to happen, but to have something that has said, yeah, this is moving forward, and it's constantly moving forward, you know, while still remembering what those times are like.
Yeah, and it really did serve that for us.
It did. And the reason I think why we managed to get to where it is now is that at no point did we put any pressure on ourselves to like have a goal, like there was no expectation. So it was like, this is what we're doing, we're sharing it with each other, we want to make something good, and that was about it. And through that we've connected with loads of different people. And actually what we've got, we're really proud of. So the gig on the 20th, as much as it's really exciting and it's wonderful to have, you know, people coming along, and we were in the Skinny this week and stuff, it's like, what we're really proud of is the fact that we've actually just shared this experience together, and we have something to show for that, which is really beautiful.
And then being able to share it with people in real life, absolute joy.
Yeah, because we didn't know when that was going to happen. I mean,
it feels really special. And because we'd layered it up by ourselves in cupboards, so you know, it was a 5-part harmony, but it was like all us. And then the drum, I didn't have a drum during lockdown, so I used a paper punch on a table and put lots of reverb on it.
What did you use for the clip? The TikTok? Did you?
No, that was that clock. There's a clock that ticks at the end of our song Apologies, and I'd stood on a ladder and held it next to that clock.
Yeah, I mean, it's Raj.
But now actually in rehearsals, we're hearing the songs live for the first ever time.
Oh yeah. That is overwhelming,
so
actually. The other day, you know, because we wrote them like 2 years ago, some of them.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the more intense ones, it's like you hear the harmonies come to life for the first time when you rehearse them. And it's like, whoa! Yeah. It's so exciting, yeah.
And I think the fact that we started remotely put us in really good stead. Hannah was away on tour with her show for a few months, but we were so used to being remote that we just continued working. And I think we took 2 years to do the record, but there's been so many other things going on. So yeah, I think we're just proud that we finished it, and it's just a joy that we've got so many loved ones to share it with now.
Yeah.
So,
No, it sounds like it'll be a really special night for all of those reasons. Can you tell us a little bit about the Worker Stories project as well? Because you sent me a link to that and it looks fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really great project. It was actually my friend Oshin who did the pictures for us. He's doing a PhD in South American human rights film festivals at the moment at Glasgow Uni. And one of his PhD friends, she was one of the key volunteers in the Worker Stories project. So I think her PhD program was derailed because of lockdown. So she pivoted, and I think I'm right in saying that this is part of her PhD. So her name's Ruth Gilbert, and she'd said to Osh that she'd be really interested in hearing our stories. So it's an archive of stories from people who were working during the pandemic. So it's just anybody who wasn't on furlough was welcome to submit their kind of worker's story from that time, and they've been archived in the National Library of Scotland, which I think is great. Again, it's the kind of time capsule idea,
Yeah.
And that it captures that moment and the reality of what it was like for people. I know they had said about previous kind of pandemics that because everyone's so traumatized, nobody documents.
Yeah.
Nobody documents anything, and then people can't learn in the future. So I think the idea was just to capture what it was actually like for real people in those situations. And we submitted our story, and we submitted "I'm Too Tired," our single. So it's been archived. I think the archiving is ongoing. But we were just really grateful to them for documenting people's stories, and I think it's a great project. So we were chuffed to bits to be involved.
And it sounds that Waves itself is almost like that. It's a documentation a very intimate and personal one, but it's something that, as you've maybe hinted at, that other people will be able to other people will be able to understand because they've been through it themselves.
We hope so. We hope
it brings people some comfort, because that's what it did for us. It's a good one to listen to with a nice cup of tea in the bath, I think.
What I'm understanding here is baths and cupboards are very important.
That's our meditation space.
Oh man, so much time in cupboards. Well, when the theatre's shut, the only other work I could do, it was scraps, Ali, it was scraps of work, but it was, radio or like wee voicey things. So I had to find a way to record from home in some capacity. So, that aided that as well. But ultimately, it was 18, did you say months? 18 months of working in a greengrocer's. So a lot of time in the cupboard spent making little bits of music when the shifts were finished. And now I have a newfound love for veg and fruit, which so I'm a bit healthier now. It's great. But I mean, we probably could have made more music, but I think in the end, when we got to 9, we were like, this is a nice. The story was arced, and it felt like it come full circle, and we wanted to kind of put it, and things have opened up again. I'm back at work, and Jill's been busy, and it's just like, we wanted to
get playing.
Yeah, we wanted to get playing, and that's what we've been doing. We've got this gig at the Glads, which we're super excited about, and then we're going to be playing in Letham as well next month, at Letham Nights, which is always a great night. So that's something to look forward to as well.
I was going to ask, are you going to play other live gigs aside from the 2 that you've mentioned? Is there any plans for that?
We have plans for one of our friends, Beth Charmers, has offered to do us a video. So we want to do a live stream. I think I did a little poll on the Instagram, and I think the feedback was that, like, in winter, people do struggle to leave the house sometimes. So, it's dark and it's cold and it's wet and everyone's skint. So we thought that would be a really nice kind of way to share the music. So we've got that in the pipeline, and hope to do that over the next couple of months. And then we're gonna wait and see. But Letham Nights is a really special one for us.
Yeah, because that's where we had our first gig together. That's where one of my first gigs after I'd done my EP pictures. That's where it was, and that was our first time singing together. So we had a few practices in your old flat in the West, and then we went for it, and it was a wonderful night.
And that was supporting Rachel Sermani, and both of us love her music, so that was an absolute dream. Yeah, it was one of those gigs where it was like, is this for real? Like, it was so magical. I can't even describe it. I mean, I'm sure most of Rachel Sermani's gigs are probably magical because she is so magical. But for us, we were like, it was midsummer. You could hear the like swallows and the birds and all that outside this town hall, which is really intimate. All my best mates were there. Like, my best mate's
parents who run the gig. But Lethem Nights was set up to get gigs to like local communities in Fife that are not, down the local pub, to try and make it more of to try and bring in more of the surrounding sort of country, countryside. So most people drive to the gig and then you have a good time and off they go.
And when lockdown lifted enough, there was the town hall kind of wasn't up and running yet, but they had a little house gig. The Farrells, because they're one of the key people who run it, and they had it in their garden, and again that was with Rachel Sermani, so that felt really special for us because our first gig together was with Rachel, and then our first
CLR
Theory songs. We tried out a couple of arrangements for a couple of the songs, and that was with Rachel as well. So Lethem Nights was a very, very special.
Yeah, it's like the homecoming, isn't it?
Yeah,
like the homecoming gig.
And in February, Mima Merrill's coming to play with us.
Yeah,
I know you're a fan of her as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love her record. I was so chuffed when you featured it. So Claire also played in Blockestra.
All right.
We all played in Blockestra together. So she played the clarinet and sang in Blockestra. So I've known her since then. So we're really excited that we'll all be playing in Lethem. So it'll be lovely. That's the 11th of February, isn't it?
Yes.
That sounds amazing. Fantastic. Thanks to both of you for taking the time to have a chat. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been so lovely to see you. We'll need to have a catch up after
excited.
so that we can ask you some questions. We've been talking for half an hour.
And this is CLR Theory and Communion.